Hi, I'm Femi Okay.
I'm Malika Bilal, and you're in the stream.
Free money with no strings attached. Is that realistic? Finland just became the first country to experiment with universal basic income on a national level.
We'll look at the impact of these experiments to see whether the concept could or should become a sustainable reality. But first, the stream team went to the streets of Washington, D.C. to ask people what they thought about basic income. Take a look.
My business opens from 5:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. I'm there 7 days a week. If I had a fixed income, I would not be at work 7 days a week. And I sure would be able to make investments and quality investments into some things that would help my business grow a lot quicker.
If they find a job and the people doesn't work, why they pay money? It's not a good option.
The vast majority of people really like to have a purpose, so I think that the universal basic income, if it's low enough, won't provide a disincentive for working.
It would wake up the country and it would help the people. People need a boost.
Some thoughts about the universal basic income and what it actually might do. It is unconditional money regularly paid by the government to citizens whether they work or not. It's an idea that's received a lot of criticism, but there are a number of countries and NGOs piloting UBI projects for the first time in 2017. In Finland, 2,000 randomly selected unemployed people were notified last month that they would be receiving €560. That's about 590 untaxed dollars each month for the next 2 years, even if they get a job.
Kela, the country's social insurance institution, says the goal is to promote employment. But opponents argue it would actually do the opposite, eliminating the incentive to find work. Regions in Canada, the Netherlands, and the U.S. state of California are just some places where small basic income pilots have launched or are planning to launch. So why are so many countries looking to explore it on a larger scale? Well, to help us talk about this, we're joined by Marjukka Turunen, head of the legal unit at Kela, at Finland's social insurance institution in Helsinki. In Geneva, Switzerland, Guy Standing is co-founder of Basic Income Earth Network. That's an organization working to foster discussions about basic income.
Oren Cass is a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute in New York, where he focuses on energy, environment and anti-poverty policy. And Scott Santons, he is a writer and basic income advocate coming to us from New Orleans in the US state of Louisiana. Welcome, everybody. Now, Finland did not publish the names of people in this random selected group of I suppose experimentees. But some of them are on Facebook, right. So this is why we know what, Malika?
They couldn't quite keep it secret. At least one person was so excited about being picked that he posted on Facebook, this is Juha, and this is what he wrote, that he is one of those 2,000 Finnish citizens who will get the basic income. He says it's a test to see how that will motivate people. He goes on to say, a long time ago, I had a company. 5 years ago, closure. I've been dreaming to start something again, but it's quite difficult because of bureaucracy. And now the bureaucracy is not in my way. I feel free. I feel as if I've gotten my citizenship back. Marjukka, how does it actually work? What happens after a participant is told you are part of this experiment? Do they just get the money?
Well, they got the decision where they said that every month, every second bank day, you will get this 560 euros. And we explained what do you have to do. You actually don't have to do nothing, and we'll leave these 2,000 people at peace. So we don't disturb them during this experiment. They can do whatever they want, and we'll just see and study them in the background and see what they can do. But they can take on a part-time job, or they can start their own businesses, and they don't lose this 560 euros, so they get to keep it anyways, no matter what they do.
Well, Finland isn't the only place that's experimenting with giving citizens money. Guy, I know that you've actually tried this in parts of India, and when you tell people that you're going to give them money, what do they say and how do they react?
Well, first of all, I should say that we've actually done 4 basic income pilots in India and in parts of Africa, and I've also been involved in small pilots in Britain. And certainly this is the year of the pilot, because the ones you've all mentioned are following. And what happens, in answer to your question, is what we had is an awareness day at the beginning of the Indian pilot, where 6,000 people received the basic income, individual payments, men, women, and the children. The children's basic income was paid to the mother.
Yeah.
And we had an awareness day before it was launched where we told everybody in the villages that they would be receiving it without conditionality, without us coming to tell them, advise them, or intervene in any way.
Sure. Guy,
And that every few months we would...
We've got a little clip of that. Is that okay if I show our audience what that awareness day looked like? Because I think people look a little bit...
Yeah, please do.
They look a little bit
please
stunned.
do. We have a video.
Yeah, this is Madhya Pradesh. This is people being told they're about to get money for the next 2 years. No strings attached. Have a look.
इस योजना के तहत 1 साल तक हर परिवार को कुछ नगद पैसे दिए जाएंगे। परिवार में जो वयस्क है 18 साल से ऊपर जो है उनको 200 रुपए मिलेंगे। 18 साल तक जो बच्चे हैं उनको 100 रुपए मिलेंगे। युवाओं के जो 200 रुपए भाई को मिलेंगे, बहन का 200 रुपए बहन को मिलेंगे और बच्चों का जो है वो बहन के खाते में जाए। कोई शर्त नहीं है, आपको परिवार में आपको ही तय करना है।
Oren, do you have any issues with the way that experiment worked out? The idea of giving local communities money?
Well, I think it's really important to clarify what we're testing. You know, going to a village in India and telling them that they'll receive a small amount of money for 2 years isn't really a basic income, certainly not the way we would think about it in a Western country where we would, in theory, give everybody thousands or $10,000 a year indefinitely. And what we have to understand about these policies is not whether people like the idea of getting free money. I'm sure they do. The question is that how we want society to operate, or do we want to maintain the principle that that you're still expected to work to make a living?
That's an interesting question, but your first point there is one that I'm also hearing from other people. I'll go to you in just a bit, Guy, because I wanted to bring in, just because I heard Oren's first point about giving money is not necessarily universal basic income. So we have a video comment on that same point, and I'll direct this to you. Have a listen. This is Daniel.
I'm a supporter of the UBI idea, and I think the Finland experiment is a fantastic first step. But it's important to recognize what the Finland experiment won't teach us. A UBI has benefits and costs. The money has to come from somewhere. Would we be better off spending $3 trillion so that everyone in America could have a basic income of $10,000 a year? Or would we be better off putting that money into schools, roads, healthcare, etc.? I really don't know, and I don't think the Finland experiment will tell us either. It will shed light on the benefit side of the equation, but not on the costs.
So Guy, I know you wanted to say something.
Well, I think that the Indian basic income experiment was the closest you could come to a genuine basic income pilot. And the effects should be recognized, because unless you understand the effects, you can't come to an appreciation of the costs and benefits. And among the effects are that nutrition and health improved, reducing the costs of the public healthcare system, for example. The amount of work increased dramatically because people had more energy, more initiatives, and more sense of entrepreneurial risk-taking. And the equity effects were dramatic in the sense that women gained more than men, and the disabled gained in particular, and they had an emancipatory effect. And those combined effects mean that you actually stimulate the economy, you boost the social status of people, and you create an economic dynamism that immediately starts to have a beneficial effect on growth and income inequality.
Scott, what's really interesting about these schemes around the world is they're all a little bit different from each other. You designed your own. Do you want to explain how you did it and how did you benefit?
Yeah, so I spent pretty much all of 2015 building up a crowd fund on Patreon, which is a kind of a Kickstarter for creatives like artists, musicians, writers, vloggers, this kind of thing. And I was able to accomplish $1,000 a month of basic income starting in the beginning of last year. So I lived all of the last year with this $1,000 per month at the first of every month. It was guaranteed. I always knew it was going to be there. And really, kind of the key takeaway that I got from this.
You persuaded people to give you money?
Yes, because what I'm doing is I'm pursuing my own, what I feel work that's important to do, which is I'm a moderator on basic income and I'm a blogger. I write about basic income, I research it. And so what I'm doing is I'm writing all this stuff and I'm publishing it for free. I'm not getting paid for it, but there are people who like what I'm doing. So they say, hey, we actually want you to have this money that enables you to do that. So that's what really basic income is it's money that enables people to pursue what they wish to pursue. And so the kind of the key takeaway that I got from last year was that I had no idea how little security I didn't have until I had it. Once you have that feeling of security, that you always know that you're going to have enough to cover your basic needs, it's like a total game changer.
Can I jump in here? Because I don't really think that's a basic income at all. I think that's people giving Scott money on the internet. You know, another way to get money every month is to have a job. If you have a job, you also receive money every month. And if the work you're doing, even writing about basic income, is something that people find valuable, you can have people pay you to do that. And it sounds like that's what Scott has done. And I think that's terrific if he's having success with it, but it doesn't tell us anything about whether we want society to be a place where everybody receives a check no matter what they do.
There's really a difference here between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Like right now, so many people are getting paid in order to do work. And let's say 70% of the workforce is mostly disengaged or entirely disengaged from their work. Like people do not necessarily enjoy what they're doing, but they're doing it because they have to. Intrinsically motivated work is work that you do because you want to do that work.
Because I think we should go back to the basics. The basics are, why do we need a basic income system, whether it's in the United States, India, the United Kingdom, or anywhere else? The reality is that the 20th century income distribution system has broken down. And it used to be that the share of national income going to capital and the share going to labor were roughly constant. But in the last 30 years, the share going to capital has shot up all over the world, and the share going to labor has shot down all over the world. And we have seen a new class structure emerging with a growing precariat of people living through casual jobs, in and out of jobs, low incomes, falling wages, and they're getting angry. And they're not only getting angry, but they're voting for political extremists, so that we're now in a dangerous situation where we have chronic inequality, chronic economic insecurity, and our existing social policies have failed to arrest the growth of poverty, they've failed to arrest the growth of economic insecurity, and they've failed to be efficient administratively or in any other way. So we're now at a very strong crisis point, and this has been illustrated by the election of Donald Trump. It's been illustrated by the Brexit vote in Britain, where people are getting angry, and basic income is almost becoming a political imperative.
Guy, and there are people online that completely agree with you. So I want to read just two of those people. This is Jared. He says, it is a good idea to then invest in citizens and allow them to find the right job with the financial ability to get that job. Another person brings up an interesting point. This is Morgan, who says basic income would then compensate work that isn't paid now. Stay-at-home parents, elder caregivers, volunteer work, schooling. Mariuka, I want to bring you in here on this point, compensating work that isn't necessarily paid now, but that is valuable and necessary. What do you make of that?
Well, I think so too, that the working life has changed very dramatically, and that's one reason why we are doing this. And we have also this third sector thing that we want persons to go and have a jobs there, and part-time jobs that we need. We have this pension boom here in Finland. All these wide masses of people are going to pensions, and we don't have anybody to care for them because nobody is there to do their jobs. And so the idea of this basic income experiment in Finland that it gives the freedom for these people, these 2,000 people, to go and do whatever they like. Okay, they can stay at their couches, yes, but I think there are so many people in these 2,000 people that want to do and want to be active, and it has also not direct impacts, but also I think that mental health and everything. You get depressed when you don't have work or you don't have the financial security. Now you have it. this money comes every month at the same time in advance, and no matter what you do, you have this financial security, and you can be active with that. And I believe that these people, some of them at least, are going to do so.
I'd like to follow up what she's just said, because one of the worst things about the existing social security systems in Finland, in the United States, and in most countries is the poverty trap situation. If you target your benefits by means testing, that means you only give it to the poor. When they go from a low benefit into a low wage job, they can often lose more by making that change. So it acts as a powerful disincentive for taking low wage jobs. Now we need to give people more incentives to be able to take such jobs without being penalized. And the poverty trap is enormous in Finland, and Ariok would testify what I'm about to say. It's over 80%, and it is in many, many other countries as well. Now that acts as a terrible disincentive. If you had a basic income, what you would get overcome that problem.
One of the earlier video comments said that they actually quite like the idea of Finland's experiment, but what about funding education and other critical social needs in society? Mariukka, how would you respond to that? Like maybe the money should be going into education, not into, can I call it an unemployment benefit?
Well, I think that that the money should go both to the education and to the hospitals, and also this social security system in Finland. It's we have a wide range of benefits, too many, I think, and I think that whether this experiment leads to anything, I think that we still get the information about how to develop our social security system. We have 40 benefit or parts of benefits, so it's too much, and people just jump in from benefit to benefit and always doing the same form filling thing, and this old administrational burden.
So
it's really hard.
You want to cut down the bureaucracy? Is that,
yes, absolutely.
Is this more than the idea of actually giving people money? It's actually it's less bureaucracy for them, less bureaucracy for you.
Yes.
Who wanted to jump in? Who was that?
I would like to jump in.
Yeah, well, let me go with Lauren first, and then I'll come back to you, Guy.
Yeah, my head is just spinning a little bit over the number of different conflicting explanations that we have now for why we need this. I mean, Guy, who's apparently been working on this for 30 years, has now argued that it's because Donald Trump got elected and things are so bad now, but he also wanted it 30 years ago. And now we also hear it's because you shouldn't have to work, but also it's because we want to make sure you work and get you into work. And it's because we should pay you for staying at home. But of course, if we want to pay you for staying at home, then we should pay people for doing that, not paying them no matter what they do. Or it's because we have too much bureaucracy. I think.
And is it possible that there could be more than one reason for there being a universal basic income?
Of course,
there are more reasons.
There are,
and I must say that
want it to have more than one reason.
Yeah, there are lots of reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say what I hear people saying is the actual goal here is that we do want people to work, but we want the system to be simpler, and we want there to be an incentive to get into the workforce. And if those things are all true, then the way to do that is with a wage subsidy, meaning that we should make work pay better so that if you do earn a paycheck, take that money you were going to spend on a basic income and instead put it into people's paychecks. And if you do that,
if you do a wage,
go ahead.
If you do a wage that Mariukka and Guy are talking about, but you don't create this policy that says we don't care whether or not people work.
If you do a wage subsidy, you're actually helping corporations get even more profit because they're able to actually lower the amount that they pay because they know that the government's going to assist that. That's exactly what people worry that a basic income could be. But the thing is that because basic income is unconditional and you get it no matter what, then that means you no longer need the welfare system that is currently trapping people. That means you also possibly no longer need minimum wages because people could say to those companies, hey, you're offering me only $6 an hour, $7 an hour, and I refuse to do this work for that little, but I would do it for, say, $15 an hour or even $20 an hour. Like that kind of bargaining power only happens because people have the ability with basic income to say no. And that's when you can actually remove all this other stuff. That's why it's so important.
Guess let me just check in to see what the online community is saying and how they're reacting to your conversation. Malika?
Well, I actually want to share a little story of one town that had this as an option and instead voted against it. This is a headline here via Vice Motherboard. Why a struggling town voted against a basic income. This is a small town in Ontario and Canada. We actually heard from a city councillor who voted against it. Her name is Dawn Quinn. She says, how would people have budgeted and paid for bills? How do they shop for food and cook to get the most out of what they have? Do we need to teach them these skills? There are too many questions not being asked. I don't think we're asking the right questions. How much money do these people have monthly? So these were her concerns that she wrote to the stream, saying that people would need to be taught how to spend their money if they were given a universal basic income. Guy, what do you make of that?
I think there's a sense behind those questions, except that we know from our pilots and from psychological experiments that people learn by being given the opportunity to learn. I think the worst thing about social policy in the last decades is how paternalistic it has been and how the bureaucrats and the politicians think that they know better how people would like to spend money. And I think that the orientation of a basic income is to enhance people's freedom, and people should be in favor of that, freedom to make choices about their lives. And it gives people a sense of basic economic security. That's one of the most fundamental reasons for supporting a basic income. People need basic security. And when they have basic security, they work more, not less. They're more productive when they work. They're more altruistic. They're more tolerant. Now, the psychologists have shown us that. The psychologists have also shown us that if people have basic security, which a basic income provides, they are much more likely to be healthy mentally and physically, and to be much more likely to be good citizens in a broad sense.
Guy, let me show people where
there's a
in the
lot
world
of evidence for that.
Some of these other programs are actually going on and have been going on. So these are universal basic income pilot projects around the world. If you see green, these are experiments currently in progress. So we've got Finland up here, Kenya, Uganda. UBI experiments currently planned in Canada, parts of India and Spain. UBI pilot high potential, that's the purple. The orange and the yellow are experiments that have been successful. So one up there in Canada, and we had that comment from Canada, Ontario, Canada earlier on. One down here in Namibia and one in the heart of India. And then we're also looking at Alaska as a permanent fund dividend. So, Mariuka, are you jumping on the trendy bandwagon right here? What was the inspiration? There are lots of pilot programs around the world. Some are in progress, some have been done. They seem to be working out pretty well. What are you banking on? I mean, you're only just right here at the beginning. What are you thinking?
Well, I think that as I said, this experiment is really important, and I'm happy that our government decided to bring it into the governmental program, and that's why I think that we have to do these experiments to learn more, because we can not know unless we experiment, and this has to be done like this. And I think that it will show us how people will behave, and as I said, I personally expect lots of information about renewing our benefit processes and renewing or developing our social security system, simplifying it. As I said, we have lots of benefits, and I think it's too much for customers and for citizens to know what they are eligible for. Do I have to now apply for unemployment benefit or parental benefit or student benefit or sickness benefit? So I think it's good anyways, whatever happens in this experiment.
Just makes your life easier, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Malika?
This is a question that we flirted around, but we'll get an answer in the post-show, Femi, because Eve on Facebook is asking what so many people are asking: who is going to pay? If everyone is on welfare, who will work? We have 15 million people, she says, on social grants. She's writing us from South Africa. They love their free money and they add nothing to the economy. That's spicy enough to take us to the post-show.
I think so. Mariuka, Guy, Oren and Scott are coming to our online post-show. The live streaming address is stream.altozero.com. Join us there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care. Hello, welcome back to our online post show. The time goes really fast, guests. Thank you so very much for staying with us for the online post show part of this conversation. You had a little tease, Malika. We better deliver the tease.
Because this is a question that we've mentioned a little bit in this discussion over the past 25 minutes. But Eve says, who is going to pay? Now, Scott, there are some altruistic people who donated to help fund your Kickstarter, your fund there, but not everyone might be so altruistic. How do we make this work financially on a wider scale?
I'd like to answer
Personally, my favorite answer to that question is actually by Alan Watts. And you can Google this, Google Alan Watts and basic income, and you can see this. And essentially the answer to this is the machines. The machines pay for it. Our technology pays for it. Like, we have the ability to actually pay for this with the machine. This is capital. So if you look at, we've actually been replacing labor with capital. This is not something only in the future. Ever since 1990, all routine labor has been entirely stagnant. The only new jobs are in non-routine labor. We have algorithms, we have machines that can do more and more of this, and they are doing more and more of this. It's changing the way that we work. So with all this new benefits accruing to only the owners of that capital, only those at the top, then we have to figure out a way to actually circulate that money back down to the rest of society, or else the entire economic system can actually slow to grind to a halt.
Scott, you are on the same wavelength as Elon Musk, and I'll go to you, Guy, with this. Elon Musk just headlined it out of Gizmodo. We need universal income because robots will steal all the jobs. Picking up on what you said about things being automated and technologies and computers being the ones that will pay for it, we got a video comment from someone who thinks that same thing. This is Travis McCrae, and here's what he told us.
Hi, I'm Travis McCrae, and I'm the leader of the Pirate Party of Canada. Basic income is an economically conservative welfare system that removes overhead and is a proven method to distribute money to those who need it most. It reduces healthcare costs, it creates jobs while also increasing GDP. People work more, not less. And it addresses job loss due to automation. In Canada, truck driving is one of our most common jobs for men. But the first fully automated truck delivery happened in October. Basic income is a viable, fiscally conservative, and socially equitable proven plan.
Guy, convinced?
I don't buy the argument that we're all about to be displaced by robots. I think there's enough work to be done, and a huge amount of care work that is unremunerated, a lot of work that we have to do, so I don't really buy that. What I do buy is that the technological revolution has increased inequality and has channeled more and more of the total income to a plutocracy. And we have to be very worried about that. My own preferred way of paying for a basic income is to set up sovereign wealth funds along the Norwegian scheme, somewhat along the Alaska Permanent Fund, by which you can pay out everybody from the fund through investing. I think that you can build up a fund, and one of the biggest ways you could build it up is phasing out the huge amount that is paid by governments in subsidies to corporations, to rich people, rich interests. It's not realized how much is paid out in subsidies, and in my new book on the corruption of capitalism, I document how that is actually able to provide a huge amount of the fund for a basic income. But I also think it's necessary to levy on all rental income, including on patents, on copyright, which are, giving a tiny minority a vast amount of the total income. And unless we address this inequality issue and the insecurity issue that comes with the precariat, we're going to have big political trouble. And I have been warning about this in my books for the last 10 years. And I even said we're going to have a political monster, and we have one now.
Before we advertise all of your books in the last moments of our show, but very slickly done there, let me show you, guess something. This is Guy talking about the growing precariat, why we need a universal basic income. This is Oren saying why universal basic income is a terrible idea. Oren, is there anything that Guy could say to you that would make you persuaded that it would be a good idea to maybe even just investigate UBI, do a few experiments maybe in the United States, other places around the world? Could you be convinced?
Well, look, I think the problem is more philosophical, and that's why pilots have a difficult time proving it one way or another. The question is, what obligations do we place where in society? That applies to all sorts of things, from how do we educate our children to who cares for the elderly. And in general, the expectation in society has been that the obligation to provide for yourself and your family is yours and not the government's. And the question is, what do we think would happen if we shift that to the government? And, you know, in my mind, the best way to test this, and the reason I think it will never become very popular, is because you just have to ask, are you going to give a basic income to your own child? From the age of, say, 10, are you going to tell your child regularly, I just want you to know, no matter what you do, no matter how productive or unproductive you are with your life, I'm going to give you enough money every month for the rest of your life to live on. And if people plan to raise their children that way, maybe they'll let the government raise their children that way. But I don't think that's how people believe we should raise kids or how our society should function.
So I'm going to take from that, when you say it's a philosophical difference, that then you cannot be persuaded. Guy and Mariuka could talk to you for the next 3 hours, and you would, for the rest of their lives, you would not be persuaded because it's a philosophical difference there. I'm going to leave it for now. It's such a fascinating topic. I hope we will return to it, particularly maybe at the end of your experiment, Mariuka, so we can just see how things went. And perhaps some people who've actually taken part in it so they can tell us their stories as well. So to be continued. In the meantime, Malika.
I'll leave us with two people on either side of this debate. This is Morgan, who says most people will want to earn more money. They want to contribute to society and explore. Basic income would spur a creative renaissance. And on the other hand, someone who's maybe not as convinced is someone who sent us a video comment. That's Ian Dooley out of Australia. Here's what he told us.
There are two main problems with universal basic income. First of all, none of the proposals are actually universal or unconditional. As soon as you deviate from simply cutting a check to every person in the country for the same amount on the same period of time, it ceases to be universal and just turns into a means-tested transfer payment with no economic novelty. The second problem is that the very reason that money exists is to provision resources to the public purpose. So a better way of guaranteeing a minimum standard of living is to guarantee that everyone has a good paying job even when they can't find one in the private sector. A job guarantee.
The conversation continues online as always. #AJStream. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care.